Okay, so you guys have sent in some sources about California rental laws. And honestly, this stuff could be confusing. I mean, who hasn't dealt with a lease at some point?
Exactly.
And in California, things are changing, especially when it comes to how those leases actually end.
Absolutely.
So let's deep dive into this together and figure out what it all means for you.
Let's do it.
One thing that jumped out from your sources was this question of landlords wanting to give those classic 30-day notices.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that's not always an option anymore. What's the deal?
Yeah. So you're right. Those days of the simple 30-day notices are kind of fading fast in California. Yeah, the state has really shifted towards stronger tenant protections,
Yeah.
particularly for folks who've been renting for a longer period.
Interesting.
And it's directly tied to the housing situation. Rising rents, limited availability, all those are major factors driving these legal changes.
So it's not as simple as my lease is up, here's your notice anymore.
Right, exactly. For example, if you've been renting somewhere for over a year, that notice period jumps to 60 days.
And if you've been there for 2 years or more, it goes all the way to 90 days.
Wow, I had no idea those notice periods could get that long. Okay, but say a landlord does want to end a lease, maybe even to move back into the property themselves. Is there ever a situation where that's allowed?
Yeah, there are definitely situations where a landlord might have grounds to end a lease, even with these new protections in place. But the key here is just cause. They need a legally valid reason, something more than just wanting the place back for themselves.
So what kind of just cause are we talking about?
Well, imagine a landlord has a close family member who urgently needs to move in.
Okay.
Or let's say major renovations are needed, the kind that require the place to be totally vacant. Those are situations where a landlord might have a case. But even then, it's not a slam dunk. They have to meet strict criteria, provide proper documentation, and often go through a legal process. It's definitely more complex for landlords now. Okay, that makes sense. But for someone who's been renting the same place for years, this must feel like a huge shift. Like suddenly they've got more security than they used to.
Absolutely. For long-term tenants, this is a major boost in terms of stability and protection against arbitrary evictions. But remember, even with these state-level changes, it's crucial to check the specific ordinances in your city or county.
Right.
Some local laws are even stricter than the states offering even more protections for renters.
So no matter which side of this you're on, knowing the detailed rules in your specific location is super important.
For sure.
So let's bring this all back to you. What does it mean for someone actually navigating the California rental scene right now?
Well, I think the main takeaway here is that California is clearly prioritizing tenant rights and trying to stabilize the rental market. Those quick 30-day notices are largely a thing of the past. For renters, it means a greater sense of security, knowing you've got time to plan and aren't going to be kicked out on a whim. And for landlords, it means a need to be extra diligent. Understand the specific legal grounds for ending a lease and be prepared to navigate a potentially more complex process.
It's fascinating how this one legal change sheds light on the bigger housing picture in California. It makes you wonder what the long-term effects will be.
Exactly. Will this achieve the goal of creating more stable housing? Or will it potentially lead to landlords being more hesitant to rent in the first place?
Interesting.
And how might it impact future development or rental costs across the state? There's a lot to consider here.
Definitely food for thought. It's clear California's rental landscape is changing. And understanding these new laws is the first step in navigating it.
Absolutely.